Happy anniversary, Houston boys!
You know, just to share it, because it's very obvious that it's just a responsibility that we have. So, any thoughts, any other? Because every time I see it, it just, yeah, it does. It really does.
I had heard about this maybe about 35, 40 years ago when I was in college. I just happened to be in the library, just fingering through it. I came across a book about it. It's like, well, South Africa. And I said to myself, like, what can we do? What can I do? What can we do as an individual? Besides what you just mentioned, share it. You know, should we write Tulsa, Oklahoma, congressman, or get a petition? I mean, what? Because that bothers me. It really hurts my heart to see that.
Well, you know, one of the things, and I just think in terms, we know that collectively there is something, if we come together and even just like you say, even just starting to, remind our congressmen, just individually doing. I don't know. I think that's a start. I think just 4 or 5 people. That's what Dr. King did. That's how and still they still do the walk across the bridge every year as a reminder. The numbers are getting smaller. There are those survivors and their descendants of those original survivors are still making that walk. But for some reason, and that's why I'm great you brought this young man with you. So, because for some reason, I think we just kind of feel that we've made it. And even, I talked to my own girls and they said, "Oh, mother, so wait a minute. It hadn't always been that way, And so I think we owe a responsibility is to keep that conversation and let them know, hey, it has not always been easy for me, or for us to get where we are, So
this wasn't so long ago.
no.
I think too, just in terms of you asking what can be done, and I think once writing comments, once something gets started, I think other things will occur to do, as people go along. I would think, we look at the makeup of our current Congress. If we wrote a letter today, it may not make that much of a difference, but over time, it might, and it also goes back to what we talk about during election time, then we kind of forget about it, that we are sending people to represent our interests. So if we're sending people who are not doing what we want them to do, then we be consistent and you don't get a second chance. You don't get a third chance. Your time is up. You didn't do that. And we will send somebody else to do, because a lot of times we'll go and we vote for the president and then we just kind of let everything else go. So we're putting someone down and not giving them the tools to work with. So I think if we can start by writing letters to our Congress people, and I think as we continue to think it through and to look at this every year, every 6 months, however frequently, that we do that, and see if we can get some inspiration for something else to do. Because there's something to be done. And look at the law now. You mentioned the Holocaust. There is a system in place for property that was taken from the Jewish people who were exterminated. There is a system for how to get that property of its value to their descendants. So if we can be that concerned, and I'm not saying that it's not something to be concerned about, but I'm saying if we can be that concerned about an event, the epicenter of which was in a foreign land, then certainly we can create that same kind of system for dealing with what happened right here. I could just slap that little
I know.
I got the reparations for him, because of the way, just the whole attitude about that whole, it was just wrong, and it ignores the common sense history, and to say that people did not pursue their, you know, their interests and their rights. And the same thing happened, they said about reparations, I'm not gonna talk about that. But they said the same thing with reparations after slavery. They say, oh, it's been too late.
Right.
If you look historically, right after slavery was over, people began seeking reparations.
Yeah.
There were suits filed that was dismissed just like that was. You know, there were appeals made to legislations and they went, you know, just like, so it's not as though people don't realize that they've been messed over. And not that they don't realize that this is the place where you told me to go and get some relief.
Right.
But when I get there, you don't want to hear from me. You know, and so yeah, I think anything that we can do to make it clear to those people who are acting in our name that this is what we want done in our name, that whatever we can do is a good thing to do.
I have a question. Is this being taught in American history in schools now? That's something that needs to happen.
It's gonna be taught through us. By us witnessing and sharing it is how that story's gonna be told. Because we've all heard of his story. He's not gonna tell that story.
And I don't know if you've had an opportunity, and I'm a retired educator, but if you've looked at recent textbooks, history books in the public schools, the amount of information that is included on African Americans in this country is getting smaller and smaller. And in fact, this year was even harder because they really wanted to take a lot of information about minorities and just not only African Americans but women, and they really wanted to redo the textbook itself. Texas is one of the largest textbook purchasing states in the country, and as a result of the influence that they had in the writing of the textbooks, so retired teachers and groups that I'm familiar with, we really got on the bandwagon and said, oh no, there's no way, you're gonna have to really correct this. So they backed down on a lot of it. But a lot of the teachers don't even know it, and a lot of them don't even question it. So
I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to stay politically involved, just not just in the presidential race,
right.
but down ballot things, because the Board of Education determines what goes in the textbook. And those folks have an agenda of leaving out the whole story of American history.
Yeah.
And we just can't let that happen.
Yeah.
Well, that's also one of the points that, people bring up from time to time in terms of the NAACP. Because as far as the young people is concerned, they don't really see that.
And I was just talking about that the other day, because they have that AXO that they do every year, but the kid, I participated in last year, and people had told me how it was years ago, but they didn't even have that much representation. And I find like the Asians and the whites are waiting in line to participate in that, but black people, because it's kind of like, they need to change the name, first of all, because the image, it's where the colored people at. They've got an image issue, and it's even how they market themselves, so it's like a de facto kind of organization. I know how it was founded, we know the history, but how is it relevant today? Because when I get the emails, I know NAACP, I'm just deleting it, because I can't relate to them. And I'm sure teenagers can't relate to them, but this boy and 100 Black Men, I would definitely buy that video, and they're going to look at that and see if I can help spread that. Because I know that organization was like, not just with the schools and the high schools, but I understand it's a professional organization for adult men, and I was told even Obama was part of that group. So I think they're a wonderful organization, by the way, so I'm going to do what I can.
Anyway, to comment.
I was just going to mention regarding the education. It just happened that this morning my husband was having a conversation with a friend of his who's a teacher in Cyprus, and she said that they try to use the month of February, Black History Month, to do their so-called education, their Black history education, and even then it's only Harriet Tubman, the ones that you hear the main, characters that we know in history. And she said that now it's a matter of doing it in 2 weeks for that matter, because in Valentine's Day rolls around, you focus in terms of Valentine's Day in Texas, Go Texan comes up, so there's very little focus at all on Black history. And you could hear in her voice, she was just almost sad about it, and I think that here you have this so-called month that we're supposed to be doing Black history, which is the only time that they even think about including Black history in education, and they're even dwindling that.
Reducing it, most
And even then, when it's presented, it seems like we get these images of these people, oh, they've come through this adversity and they did it, oh, and it's all fine now. You know, as though it happened and there's no longer any resistance, and everyone's accepted this as a statement of fact now, and now they want to say we're post-racial America. You know, and it's just, and we get those same images. Not that those people were not important, but the reality is there were many, you know, and we ought to be exposed to all of them, or as many of them as we can possibly take in, you know. And I think the school is an obvious place to do that, but we also have to make that information available through our own libraries and through community centers and other kinds of venues, because, as was said before, they're not going to, the system that created that outcome is not going to give the information and tools to change that outcome. So we have to create that change.
That's right.
Well, why don't we let this be a foundation that we can build upon, where once a month we come together and let's catch up on our history, and let's build this to where we can no longer do it here, and we need a